Hilara's head snapped toward the radar. "No," she whispered. "Not this fast." I followed her gaze. My blood ran cold. Through the viewing screen, space itself seemed to twist. Shadows coiled unnaturally, distorting reality. Then, as if materializing, from nothing, a massive warship emerged from the void. Its black hull gleamed like obsidian, smooth and predatory. The Empire had found us. "They must have tracked us when we took off," Alara muttered, fingers flying across the controls. "We need to jump now." The ship trembled as a deep vibration rumbled through it. My stomach twisted. "Can we even escape that thing?" "We have to," Alara snapped, slamming her palm against a glowing panel. The ship groaned, its engines roaring to life. The warship moved, shifting its massive form into position. A sickly blue light pulsed along its underbelly, charging. I didn't need to ask what that meant. They were about to fire. My heart pounded. "Alara, almost there," she growled, eyes locked on the nav system. "Just a few more seconds." We didn't have seconds. The enemy ship released a blast of pure energy. Time slowed. The bolt of light raced toward us, massive and all-consuming. There was no way we could escape in time, Alara cursed. "Shields won't hold. Something inside," he snapped. A familiar hum pulsed through my veins. Ancient, raw, waiting to be unleashed. Without thinking, I reached forward. And then, I pushed. A wave of invisible energy erupted from me, colliding with the incoming blast. The space between us shattered, rippling like a broken mirror. For a brief moment, I felt everything. The weight of the universe pressing against me, the power surging through my bones, the sheer force of destruction trying to consume us. But I wouldn't let it. I clenched my fists. The energy bent. Then, with a deafening crack, it shattered into nothing. Silence fell. Alara stared at me, eyes wide with disbelief. "You?" I didn't have time to process what had just happened. "Jump. Now." My voice was steady, but inside my mind was spinning. Alara didn't hesitate. She slammed her hand against the controls. The ship lurched forward, the stars streaking as we shot into hyperspace, leaving the warship behind. We had escaped. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The hum of the ship was the only sound. I sank into the seat, every muscle in my body trembling. My hands were still warm, tingling with residual energy. Alara exhaled shakily, running a hand through her white-silver hair. "You just deflected a planetary-class cannon shot," I swallowed. "Yeah," she turned to me. "No untrained hybrid should be able to do that." I met her gaze. "So what does that make me?" Silence. Then softly, she answered, "Something more." I let out a slow breath. The truth was sinking in. I wasn't just a mistake. I wasn't just some forgotten experiment. I was something new. And the Empire wouldn't stop coming for me. Alara stood, walking toward me. The tension in her shoulders was gone now, replaced with something softer. She knelt beside me, brushing, her fingers against mine. "You okay?" she murmured. I almost laughed. "I don't even know what that means anymore." She smiled faintly. "Then let's figure it out together." I looked into her silver eyes, felt the warmth of her hand in mine, and for the first time in my life I didn't feel lost. I felt found. The stars stretched endlessly before us, full of danger, full of mystery. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid because Alara was right. This wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. Alara stood in front of me, her body glowing with an otherworldly light. The rain no longer touched her, it evaporated before reaching her skin. Her silver eyes blazed, filled with raw fury. "You don't get to take him," she whispered. One of the hunters, struggling to rise, lunged. Without thinking, I reacted. I didn't fully understand what I was doing, but something inside me did. I raised my hand, and just like before, I commanded the energy around me. A wave of unseen force blasted from my fingertips. The hunter froze mid-air, its form twisting violently. Then, with a crack like splitting stone, it was torn apart, scattered into fragments of light before vanishing completely. I stared at my own hands, my chest rising and falling. Did I just... Elara grabbed my wrist. There's no time. The other one is still... A shriek of rage split the night. The remaining hunter charged. But Elara didn't wait. She pulled me into the ship, slamming the hatch shut just as another energy blast struck the metal. The ship shook violently. Hold on, Elara shouted as she sprinted toward the control panel. I stumbled after her, my head still reeling from what I had done. Elara, I just killed one of them. She didn't look back. If you hadn't, we'd both be dead. Her hands flew over the alien interface. The ship roared to life, its ancient systems sputtering before finally stabilizing. The engines rumbled. Beneath us, the hum of energy growing stronger. Outside, the hunter pounded against the hull, its very presence warping the ship's structure. The walls shook, metal groaning under the strain. You cannot escape. You are an abomination. Elara gritted her teeth. We'll see about that. The controls flared with a burst of blue light. The ship lifted. The world outside the viewing screen tilted as we shot into the sky, tearing through the storm clouds. The last thing I saw was the hunter standing motionless in the clearing below, watching us leave. Then, we broke through the atmosphere. The moment we entered open space, silence fell. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound. My body was weightless for a brief second before the artificial gravity kicked in. I slumped into the nearest seat, my hands trembling. Holy shit. Elara exhaled sharply, collapsing into the chair beside me. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The weight of what had just happened settled in. We had escaped Earth. I had killed something, and now, there was no going back. I turned to Elara. Where are we going? She stared at the vast expanse of space before us. The stars stretched endlessly, shimmering against the void. Somewhere safe, she said, but there was uncertainty in her voice. I swallowed. Will they follow us? Elara hesitated. They always follow. A chill ran through me. She turned to me then, her gaze softer than before. I told you back on Earth that I would have chosen you. I nodded slowly. Yeah. She reached out, taking my hand in hers. I wasn't lying. My heart stuttered. Before I could respond, she leaned in, pressing her lips to mine. Soft this time, slower, like she was memorizing the moment. The vastness of space surrounded us, but right then, in that moment, I wasn't afraid. Because as long as I had her, I wasn't alone, but deep down I knew this wasn't the end. The war was only beginning. The stars stretched infinitely before us, distant and cold. Elara's kiss still lingered on my lips, but reality came crashing back. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. The hum of the ship vibrated beneath me, steady yet fragile, as if it too understood how close we had come to death. I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my damp hair. So, I said, voice rough, where exactly is safe? Elara didn't answer right away. Her silver eyes flickered over the ship's interface, fingers gliding across holographic controls. Symbols I didn't recognize pulsed with life. Finally, she spoke. There's a colony, hidden from the Empire. My people call it Vena's Refuge, place where outcasts and fugitives gather. If we can reach it, we might stand a chance. I frowned. A chance to do what? Run forever? She turned to me, her gaze unreadable. A chance to fight back. I swallowed hard. The weight of her words pressed against my chest. Fight back? Against them? The ones who had been hunting me my entire life without me even knowing it? I glanced at my hands, the same hands that had torn a hunter from existence with a force I barely understood. I had power, but power didn't mean control. Elara. I hesitated. What if I can't do this? What if I lose control again? She studied me for a long moment, then reached out, taking my hand in hers. Her touch was warm, grounding. Then I'll be here to pull you back. Something in my chest tightened, but before I could respond, the ship lurched violently. Alarms flared to life. The screens flickered red and a chilling noise echoed through the ship, a proximity alert. Every muscle in my body was tense, every instinct screaming that we were being hunted. Then, a sharp crack. My foot had snapped a twig. The figures above went rigid. Then, without hesitation, they moved. The forest erupted with motion. The hunters leaped from the ridge, landing with unnatural grace. Their bodies shimmered as if they weren't fully solid, their forms shifting in the dark. Elara grabbed my wrist. "Run!" We tore through the trees, the wind howling against my ears. The hunters were fast, too fast. They moved like phantoms, closing the distance with terrifying ease. I risked a glance over my shoulder. One of them blinked out of existence, then reappeared closer, just a few feet behind us. Shit. Elara yanked me to the side, and a pulse of energy exploded where we had just been. The air crackled, the tree beside us turning to ash in an instant. They weren't trying to capture us. They were trying to erase us. Panic surged through me, but so did something else. The energy, the same force that had destroyed the ship, was still inside me. I could feel it, a low hum beneath my skin, waiting to be unleashed. I didn't have time to think. I turned and threw my hand out. A wave of unseen force shot outward, colliding with the nearest hunter. The figure twisted unnaturally before being flung backward, crashing through trees like a rag doll. For a split second, Elara stared at me in disbelief. Then she grabbed my face and kissed me, fast, fierce, desperate. The moment broke as another attack came. We barely dodged the next pulse of energy before diving behind a boulder. Elara's breath was ragged. "You're going to get us killed." "You kissed me," I hissed. "You blew a hunter through 3 trees. Priorities." She peeked over the rock. The second hunter was advancing, their form flickering, unstable. The first one, the one I had blasted away, was already recovering. We couldn't fight them both. "Elara," I whispered. "What do we do?" She pressed her lips together, then grabbed my hand. "There's one thing I didn't tell you." I frowned. "Now's not the time for secrets." She exhaled sharply. "The safe house? It's not just a hiding place. Then what is it?" She looked at me, her silver eyes filled with something dangerous. "A ship." My pulse skyrocketed. "Wait, what? If we can reach it, we can leave Earth." "Leave Earth." The words hit me like a freight train. My life, my past, everything I had known, it would all be left behind. But if we stayed, we died. Elara searched my face. "Do you trust me?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes." She nodded, gripping my hand tighter. "Then run." And we ran. Toward the stars. The forest blurred around us as we ran, each step pushing us closer to the unknown. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but Elara's grip in my hand anchored me. The hunters were closing in, their distorted forms flickering, in and out of reality, their presence warping the air itself. Ahead, the dense tree line began to thin. I caught a glimpse of something metallic, partially hidden beneath a thick canopy of vines and branches. The ship. Elara tugged me forward. "We're almost there." A guttural, inhuman voice rang out behind us. "You cannot escape." I risked a glance back. The 2 hunters had merged into the shadows, moving with an eerie fluidity, their silhouettes barely distinguishable from the night itself. My pulse spiked. We burst into the clearing. There it was, a sleek, obsidian-colored ship, its surface pulsing faintly with alien symbols. It was small, built for speed rather than battle, and from the looks of it, old. Vines wrapped around its structure like nature itself had been trying to claim it. Elara sprinted toward the entrance, slamming her palm against an invisible panel. The ship reacted. Lights flickered, metal shifted, and a hiss of decompressing. Air filled the space as the hatch creaked open. A sudden whoosh of energy blasted past my ear. I ducked instinctively as a bolt of searing white light struck a tree nearby, turning it to ash. They had caught up. Alara, I shouted, turning to face the hunters. They were no longer just figures in the dark. The rain hissed as it touched their distorted forms, revealing glimpses of their true nature. Elongated limbs, featureless faces, and eyes that burned like twin stars. Surrender. Now. The force of their words vibrated in my skull. A nauseating pressure filled my head, forcing me to my knees. I clutched my temples, gasping. Ilara! She spun around, her expression torn between panic and fury. Let him go. One of the hunters raised a hand, and the pressure inside my skull increased tenfold. My vision swam. They were trying to erase me. Ilara screamed, and suddenly, everything exploded. A shockwave rippled outward from her, sending the hunters flying. The ground cracked, the trees groaned, and the very air around us shimmered like the fabric of reality itself had been rewritten. I collapsed, gasping for breath. My head was still ringing, but the unbearable weight had lifted. I forced myself to look up. I wasn't just feeling the energy now, I was controlling it. The ship struggled, its systems sparking in protest. I clenched my fingers into a fist, and the vessel collapsed inward, metal groaning as if the very fabric of reality had shifted around it. Then, a deafening boom. The ship imploded. A shockwave burst through the forest, scattering leaves and rain in every direction. Ilara and I were thrown backward, crashing onto the wet earth. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, her voice, weak but alive. You just... She sat up, staring at me. That was impossible. I coughed, my body aching. Yeah? Well, so is kissing an alien, but here we are. A small, breathless laugh escaped her. Then she leaned in, pressing her forehead against mine. You're dangerous, she murmured. If they find out what you can do... I exhaled. They'll come after me. She nodded. And they won't stop. I looked into her eyes, feeling the weight of our shared history, however lost it may have been. Then we run together, I said. No more secrets. No more hiding. Ilara's fingers traced along my jaw, her touch softer than the rain. They will never allow us to be together. I smirked, brushing a strand of her damp hair behind her ear. Then we make our own rules. Lightning flashed, illuminating her face. She was breathtaking, otherworldly. Mine. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had found my place. Not on Earth. Not among humans. But with her. Wherever that would take me, and I would follow her to the ends of the universe, even if it meant war. The night air was thick with the scent of burning metal. The wreckage of the alien ship smoldered behind us, its twisted remains casting eerie shadows against the rain-soaked forest. My chest heaved, my body still vibrating with the energy I had unleashed. Ilara's fingers laced through mine, grounding me. Her silver eyes shone with something between awe and fear. You're more powerful than I thought, she murmured. I swallowed hard, still trying to comprehend what had just happened. One moment, we had been running for our lives. The next, I had crushed an entire ship with a single thought. I didn't know I could do that, I admitted, flexing my fingers as if expecting the energy to return. It didn't. I felt drained, like I had just sprinted a marathon while lifting a truck. Ilara squeezed my hand. You've only just awakened. A gust of wind sent rain spraying against my face. The storm hadn't let up, and we were still dangerously exposed. If there were more of them coming, when more of them came, we wouldn't be able to fight again. Not like this. We need to leave, I said. Now. Ilara nodded, her gaze scanning the darkened forest. There's a place, a safe house. It's not far, but we have to move fast. Without another word, we ran. The deeper we went into the woods, the quieter everything became. The sounds of the campus, the distant sirens probably responding to the explosion, faded into the background. Only the wind and our hurried breaths remained. My thoughts raced as fast as my heartbeat. Who am I? What am I? I had spent my whole life believing I was just normal. Sure, I had always felt off, always sensed things I couldn't explain. But never in my wildest dreams had I imagined this. I turned to Elara as we ran. Tell me the truth. What do you know about me? Her jaw tensed. Not enough. Then tell me what you do know. She hesitated but didn't slow her pace. I was sent to Earth to observe, to live among humans, gather intel. But there were whispers, rumors about a lost one, a hybrid. The word sent a chill through me. A hybrid? A child born between our kind and humans. Her voice was careful, measured. It was forbidden. Our people consider it a crime against nature. Any trace of one like you was meant to be erased. A weight settled in my stomach. So you're saying I shouldn't exist? Elara looked at me then, her expression softening. No, she whispered. I'm saying you're a miracle. The words struck deeper than they should have. For so long, I had felt wrong in my own skin, like I was missing something, like I didn't fit anywhere. And now, here she was telling me that I wasn't broken, that I was something more. The warmth in her gaze threatened to undo me, but before I could say anything, she stopped abruptly, pulling me behind a thick tree. I opened my mouth to ask, why? But she pressed a finger to her lips. Her eyes flickered upward. I followed her gaze. Two dark figures stood on the ridge above us. Their silhouettes were sharp, unnatural. Even from this distance, I could feel their presence pressing against my senses, cold and suffocating. Hunter's Elara leaned in, her breath warm against my ear. They don't know exactly where we are yet, but they're searching. I exhaled slowly, forcing my panic down. What do we do? She pointed to the left. We keep moving, quietly. I nodded. We slipped through the undergrowth, careful to avoid stepping on branches or disturbing the wet leaves beneath us. Their surfaces pulsed with faint, glowing lines shifting like liquid metal. They moved soundlessly, scanning the ground below. Cold terror gripped me. They found us. Elara clenched her jaw. We can't outrun them. So what do? She turned to me, eyes fierce. We fight. I stared at her. With what? You. The wind howled. Lightning split the sky. The ships above began their descent, and deep inside me something woke up. The air trembled. A strange energy surged through my veins, foreign yet familiar. My vision sharpened, the raindrops slowing in midair as if time itself had bent to my will. My breath came in short, rapid bursts, my heart hammering as the dark ships hovered above the treetops, scanning for us. Elara turned to me, eyes glowing with urgency. Do you feel that? I nodded, though I didn't understand what that was. She grabbed my wrist, her touch sending another jolt of energy through my body. That's your power waking up. I swallowed hard. I don't have powers, Elara. You do. Her voice was firm. And if we don't use them, we die tonight. A mechanical whir echoed through the forest as the ships adjusted their trajectory, sweeping the trees with beams of pale blue light. My instincts screamed, move, hide, run, but something deep inside me resisted. Elara's fingers tightened around mine. Close your eyes. What? Trust me. The moment I did, the world went silent. My awareness expanded, stretching beyond my physical body. I felt the presence of the ships, their cold, synthetic minds scanning the landscape. I felt the static in the air, the pulse of unseen forces surrounding us. And strangest of all, I felt Elara, not just her presence but her emotions, raw and unfiltered. Fear, determination, and something else. Something warm. Something meant for me. My eyes snapped. Open, the blue light swept toward us. Now! Elara hissed. I didn't know what I was doing, but instinct took over. I reached out, not with my hands, but with something deeper, something buried inside me. The moment the scanning beam touched my skin, I willed it to scatter, to bend away, to disappear. And it did. The light flickered, then veered off course, spiraling upward into the storm. The ship's scanning system glitched, its engines sputtering. Elara's lips parted in shock. You did that. I staggered back, panting. I don't even know what I did. She stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. They were right to fear you. Before I could respond, a voice crackled through the air, cold, mechanical, inhuman. Target acquired. A blinding spotlight fell upon us. Elara cursed. Run! We sprinted through the trees, dodging roots and low-hanging branches. My mind raced. I had just willed energy to move, I had controlled it. That should have been impossible, yet it had felt natural. Almost too natural. The ship pursued us, engines shrieking as it lowered, mechanical limbs unfolding from its sides. The hum of an energy weapon vibrated in the air. They were going to fire. Elara! I grabbed her hand, pulling her behind a fallen tree just as a bolt of white-hot plasma tore through the air. It struck a boulder nearby, shattering it into molten shards. Elara cursed under her breath. We can't keep running. I swallowed. Then what do we do? She turned to me, her silver eyes locked onto mine. We fight. Before I could protest, she grabbed my face and kissed me. For a moment, everything else vanished. The storm, the ships, the danger, it all melted away. Her lips were warm, urgent, filled with a desperation I didn't understand until now. This wasn't just a kiss. It was a message. A promise, because this could be the last time. When she pulled away, her voice was breathless. No matter what happens, I want you to know I would have chosen you. Something inside me cracked open. I didn't know how or why, but I understood. This wasn't the first time we had been together. Maybe not in this life. Maybe not on this planet. But somewhere, in the vastness of the universe, we had been more before, and fate had brought us together again. The ship's engines roared. The next shot would not miss. Elara exhaled. I love you. And then, she stepped into the open. No. I reached for her, but she raised a hand. A wave of unseen energy rippled outward from her palm, colliding with the ship's weapon system. Sparks erupted. The vessel shuddered violently, its limbs spasming as its targeting systems failed. She turned back to me, her silver eyes glowing like stardust. Run. Now. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. I clenched my fists, feeling the same energy stir within me. I had no idea what I was capable of, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't leaving her. Not again. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, toward the ship. Elara's eyes widened. Wait. The moment I raised my hand, the energy inside me exploded. The forest bent, the trees groaning under an unseen force. The ship's engines stuttered, its mechanical body twisting unnaturally as an invisible grip wrapped around it. Mind reeling, I took her hand, and I ran. We ran. Down the dimly lit dormitory hallways, past closed doors and flickering exit signs, through stairwells that echoed our hurried footsteps. Elara's grip on my hand was iron tight, her breath ragged. My heart pounded, each beat an urgent warning. We burst through the emergency exit and into the night. The rain hit my skin like ice, but I barely noticed. The streetlights buzzed, casting long, fractured shadows across the empty campus. I risked a glance behind us. Nothing but the empty hallway we had left behind. Who's coming? I gasped, slowing slightly. Elara, what the hell is happening? She didn't answer. Instead, she dragged me toward the tree line at the edge of campus. My shoes sank into the mud as we plunged into the woods, the scent of wet earth and pine filling my lungs. Stop! I yanked my hand free. I'm not moving another inch until you tell me what's going on. Elara spun around, her silver eyes flashing. You don't understand. You're right. I don't. I ran a shaky hand through my soaked hair. You broke into my room, freaked out like I was some kind of monster, and now we're running from who? The government? Aliens? You need to start making sense, Elara. She exhaled sharply and glanced at the sky. Thick storm clouds rolled overhead, lightning flashing in the distance. When she spoke again, her voice was lower, steadier. They're not human, she said. The word sent a chill down my spine. Who? She swallowed. The people chasing us. My people. I took a step back. Your people? Elara hesitated, then raised her hand. A faint glow pulsed from her palm, illuminating the raindrops in the air. My breath hitched as strange, swirling symbols appeared, hovering in the space between us. They glowed a soft blue before flickering out like dying embers. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't some sleight of hand. She was not human. You? My throat was dry. You're an alien? She nodded. I was sent here to observe, to blend in. I never expected to find someone like you. A bitter laugh escaped me. Like me? I'm not. But I stopped myself, because I didn't know what I was. I thought back to the visions, the stars, the strange city, the connection I had felt the moment I touched her. It had felt familiar, like something buried deep inside me had been awakened. You said I was like you, I said slowly. What does that mean? Elara hesitated. I don't know yet, but I intend to find out. I shivered, though not from the cold. My whole life I had felt different, like I never quite belonged, like something inside me was just off. I had always ignored it, pushed it down. But now, I wasn't so sure. Elara took a cautious step closer. When I touched you back there, I saw something, a memory, but not mine. My mouth went dry. I saw it too. Her breath caught. Then it's true. You are one of us. I shook my head. No, that doesn't make sense. I was born here. I have parents. I cut myself off, suddenly unsure. Had my parents ever really talked about my birth? Had there ever been baby pictures of me? A sick feeling coiled in my stomach. Elara seemed to sense my unease. I don't think you're fully like me, she admitted. You weren't raised off-world. Your memories are too human, but something inside you is different, something hidden. I stared at her. And these people, your people, they want to kill me because of that? Elara hesitated. No, they don't want to kill you. She swallowed hard. They want to erase you. A new kind of fear slithered through me. Erase? Her voice was barely a whisper. If they find you, they will wipe your existence from this world. No one will remember you. Not your family, not your friends. It will be like you never existed. My pulse thundered. Why? Because you're a threat. A gust of wind howled through the trees, shaking the branches overhead. I took a step back, heart racing. How the hell am I a threat? I don't even know what I am. That doesn't matter to them. Elara's expression darkened. If they think you have any connection to our kind, they won't take any chances. A thought struck me like lightning. Wait, have they done this before? Have they erased people like me? She didn't answer right away, but the silence was answer enough. Jesus Christ. I ran a hand down my face, trying to steady my breathing. This was too much. My entire life had just been flipped upside down, and now I was being hunted by an alien race for reasons I didn't even understand. Elara's hand suddenly shot out, grabbing my wrist. We have to move. Now. Why? They're close. I didn't question her this time. We ran deeper into the forest, the rain falling heavier, the air thick with electricity. My lungs burned, my heart pounded, then I heard it. A low humming sound. Not from the wind, not from the storm, from above. I skidded to a stop and looked up. Through the breaks in the trees I saw them, dark, sleek ships hovering just above the treetops. It started as an ordinary night. I was in my dorm, mindlessly scrolling through research articles, my eyes heavy with exhaustion. The glow of my computer screen cast long shadows across the small room. Rain tapped lightly against the window, a soothing rhythm that almost lulled me into sleep. Then my door creaked open. At first, I assumed it was my roommate coming back early from his shift at the library. I didn't bother turning around. "Damn, you're back early," I muttered, rubbing my eyes. Silence. A strange electric feeling prickled the back of my neck. Slowly, I turned. Ilara stood in the doorway. My heart stuttered. She was the last person I expected to see here, especially unannounced. Ilara was one of those girls who existed on the fringes of everyone's attention, beautiful but untouchable. She spoke in clipped, quiet sentences, never too much, never too little. Her silver eyes always held secrets, as if she were watching the world from a distance. But right now she wasn't distant. She was right here. And she was staring at me like I was a ghost. Her expression was unreadable, her body stiff. "Ilara?" I sat up straight. "What are you doing here?" She didn't answer. Her breathing was shallow and something flickered in her gaze. Fear? Shock? Whatever it was, it sent an eerie chill through my bones. "You shouldn't be here," she finally whispered. I frowned. I live here?" "No." She shook her head, taking a step back. This isn't possible." My pulse quickened. "Ilara, what are you talking about?" She pressed a trembling hand against the doorframe as if steadying herself. The air in the room felt thick, charged with something unseen. The soft humming of my laptop suddenly sounded too loud, my own breathing unnaturally sharp. I stood up. "Are you okay?" She flinched at the movement like a deer caught in headlights. Then, before I could blink, she turned sharply and bolted for the hallway. Pure instinct took over. I lunged forward, grabbing her wrist before she could escape. The second my fingers made contact with her skin, the world shifted. A shock of energy rippled through me, a force so intense it knocked the breath from my lungs. It wasn't static. It was something deeper, something alive. The moment stretched, elongated. Images flickered in my mind. Not memories, visions. Sky filled with twin moons. A city made of light. Towers humming with alien energy. A sea of stars stretching infinitely into the void. And then, her, standing beside me, holding my hand, looking at me with an expression that made my heart ache with an emotion I couldn't name. I gasped and let go. The visions vanished. I stumbled back, my breath ragged. Ilara stood frozen, staring at me in horror. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. No, this can't be happening." I grabbed the edge of my desk, grounding myself in the present. My dorm, the rain outside, the blinking light of my laptop. It was all real. But so was what I had just seen. What the hell was that? My voice came out hoarse. "Ilara, what did you do to me?" She didn't answer right away. She looked devastated, like something had shattered inside her. Then she whispered, "It wasn't me." I swallowed hard. Then what was it? A pause. Then with a deep, shaking breath, she looked at me and said the words that changed everything. "You're like me." The floor beneath me might as well have disappeared. My stomach twisted into knots, my pulse pounding in my ears. Like her? What did that even mean? She turned away, pacing in tight, frantic steps, her hands clenched and unclenched as if she was waging a silent war with herself. "This wasn't supposed to happen," she murmured. I thought you were just human." A laugh escaped me, sharp and bitter. "I am human, Ilara. What else would I be?" She stopped and met my gaze, her silver eyes swirling like molten mercury. Something more. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My brain refused to process what she was saying, but the truth was there, staring me in the face. Wasn't normal, I never had been. The realization hit me like a freight train. The way I always felt different. The way I sometimes knew things before they happened. The way I could sense people's emotions without them ever speaking a word. I had buried those things, dismissed them as quirks, as coincidences. But Elara was telling me otherwise. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't alone. The storm outside intensified, wind howling against the windows. The fluorescent light above us flickered, casting strange shadows across Elara's face. Then, suddenly she stiffened. "There. Coming," she whispered. Ice slid down my spine. "Who?" She looked at me, her expression torn between panic and determination. "There's no time to explain," she said. "But if you want to live, you need to trust me." Every instinct screamed at me to demand answers, to make sense of the chaos unraveling in front of me. But something deep inside, something primal, something ancient, told me to listen to her, to run. And so, heart pounding,